Welcome to the BMI Podcast, guys.
Welcome.
Today, me and Mikey, we're talking about meditation. Something
Never would have thought that we would have been sitting down to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely more your realm of things, but for myself, it's something I am interested in and open to, at least, you know. And if you guys haven't already, please consider giving us a follow and even a share if these episodes bring any value to you or of something like that, and you have any interests or want to drop us any questions, also drop us some questions.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So shall we get into it?
Let's.
Yeah, it is funny to sort of be sitting here thinking about doing a meditation type episode, because I don't know, I definitely don't think I'm hot-headed now, but man, I've definitely had my times where I was always just a hot-headed little, always blowing off at everything.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, I still have that capability to. Like I still have it there, but I try to not have it as much. But that's probably why I'm more interested in meditation now, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, even if I was to reflect, in the early years where, we were almost very rational, atheistic, to the point it has to make sense, that kind of thing, to even fathom some kind of spirituality, if that's even the right word, to allow to come in, you're like, well, what? No, that's not who I am. And like, I don't know, I think we were both kind of like that, or at least I was anyway.
Yeah, I definitely had, it was weird because I definitely had that atheist background. I kind of wanted more science-based proof, and now kind of having that approach, I kind of had to throw that away, because now everyone's throwing science at me via COVID and all of these sort of things. But now I was like, well, that's just fake science. And then like, well, which science do you believe? I was like, oh God, it's trying to navigate that sort of that realm.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it is. And it is. It's funny to reflect that, like, doing a bit of a U-turn in terms of, how I at least thought about the process. But I'll let you kind of fire away your questions.
Well, like, we're older now as well, I think.
100%.
Like, I kind of think that being that brash sort of, I guess, explosive, like that's your younger years, and that's why I sort of think that's sort of what I like to call the grinding years for the listeners out there. Like, I kind of wouldn't want to be trying to tame you too much. I would probably more try to give you a few little nuggets that will maybe deter from making the similar mistakes that I made, and being a bit brash or opinionated and enforcive on others with your way of believing. Whereas I don't want you to lose that, that grunt, that, that dog in you sort of thing. It can be good, but it can be also detriment to relationships and
funny you say that, because it's like that actually I think is ego building, and we need that. Like, I think a part of a healthy personality is a strong enough ego. Like, it needs to be strong enough to take on criticism from others, right? And a part of that is kind of fending your way through the knowledge landscape of what do you actually believe. Because, early on we're just told what to believe. And then we get to a point and that's kind of like, okay, well, what do you believe? And we quite often have to pull upon things that obviously we're told and things that we're learning, but we almost have to be quite stubborn in our view early on in order to almost push our way through the muck of fucking just what we even know and what we think we know. To get to a place where we have enough of an ego to then be able to step back and be like, fuck, I know sweet fuck all. But we need to go through that first of building it up in order to actually take a step back to be like, actually there's so much more that I don't know.
And then there's a lot of young women, like, if there's young women listening to this, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's pretty much is for like the young man. Like, we it's an interesting path we go through during our younger journey. It's you're definitely right, like, about how we're just trying to sort of navigate that with, and we have times where we're trying to sort of push maybe our thoughts or we're justifying our actions pretty much, Yeah,
100%. And it is a lot of the time it is in the name of ego building, and like I said, that probably positive for most people. Like, we need that sense of healthy ego. We need to have an understanding of who at least we think we are, and at least from there you can kind of take that step back. And that was I think the humbling thing of going through postgraduate school was kind of like, oh shit, like you get to the end of like undergrad and bachelors and things, and you get there and you're like, oh yeah, no, I know a lot, and then you go back in, you're like, fuck, I know there's so much I don't know. Like for everything that I do know, there's at least tenfold I don't.
Yeah.
But you need to get to the place where you're like, I do know.
Yeah.
Because if you never get to the place of being like, I do know,
yeah.
then you can't stand on anything.
Yeah.
Like you're on shaky ground.
That is a good point. Like that's how I approached when I was doing real estate.
Yep.
I had one of the managers be like, "Oh, you think you know everything?" And I was like, I absolutely don't. And if that's coming across that way, you know, like please tell me, because I don't think I know everything. I'm just telling you because I just did my papers recently. I read this, and like tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then we go and do the research, and they're like, "Oh, no, actually you're right." But I was just like, I didn't want to come across as that arrogant. I know, because I was just fresh into the industry, but it was only because I just did my papers, like a lot of that information was fresh on top of my head.
Yep.
And I was telling these old dogs like the new conditions or the new laws that we had to like disclosure and all of those different things that we had to do for the client.
Yep.
And then they were like, no, you don't have to do that. And I was like, yeah, but I swear I swear I just did the paper.
Yeah.
Like not being anything. I was like, no offense, but you know, and you just don't want to come across that way as well, especially when I get what you're saying though. Like you do want to get to that point where you definitely know.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you didn't stand up for that, so that's what I mean about the healthy ego. It's not necessarily that you're egotistical. It's just that, you know, if you didn't have a healthy sense of ego, then you wouldn't be able to stand up for that idea.
Yeah, or just cower straight away and be like, oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But then obviously that was true. And so then both of you are none the wiser because of that. So even if you end up in that situation, you know, saying and saying what you think, even if it turns out to be wrong, at least you kind of followed that through. Yeah. And then you both get to a place where you can kind of almost like push against each other to find whatever the actual truth ends up being. But you can only do that by having a healthy sense of ego. Yeah. Because without it, you, like you said, you'll kind of drop down and you just be like, okay, whatever you say. But that doeses't really get you anywhere. Yeah,
no, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we better get into meditation. Meditation, anyway. Guys. All right. We are guilty of this, so you can drop comments and tell us how much we blabble. It's all good. Just any engagement's good, you know. So we try. I always like catch us, and I'm like, fuck. All right, now I've got to try and like get the questions coming out. Anyway, you know, first of all, how long have you been doing meditation? You know.
So I was actually just looking at the app earlier that I typically use. So I use the Waking Up app.
Yep.
And I can always send you a link that you can put in the description, which gives anyone who's interested a free month to the actual app itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyone can click the link and just get a free month.
No affiliation or anything like that.
No affiliation. It's just like literally the one that I've used. I've used a couple.
That's how you signed up.
Yeah, I've used a couple, and this one by far is the best one that I've found. For me, it just clicked. So again, I'll send you the link in there, and that's literally just anyone can get a month for free with it. But so I was looking at that, and I think it was I'd accumulated on that app anyway about 88 hours of meditation.
Oh, wow.
So I think all in all, I've probably been doing it for the most part, I'd say a consistent 3 years.
Wow.
But an inconsistent since I actually started kickboxing.
Oh, okay.
So I was reflecting on...
How long is that?
Yeah. So this was probably...
Over 10 years?
When I was 16.
Yeah.
I think I started kickboxing at around 16. And I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that it was kind of a part of the ritual within kickboxing. So obviously Muay Thai anyway originating in Thailand. And there's a big Buddhist tradition in Thailand.
Oh, cool.
Well, that's their main religion anyway.
Yep.
And so a part of that, and it's kind of almost worked into the Thai boxing, which is, you know, some kind of Buddhist practice, and they do what's called a waikru, which is like it's almost like a warm-up. If you watched it, it's essentially a dynamic stretching.
Like when they're doing is it sort of like respects to their either gods or elders or whatever.
Yep. And their trainers and things like that. And a part of that anyway is kind of like a sitting meditation anyway. And so you sit at the end and you're kind of just, you know, you're centering yourself essentially. And so I did that without even really understanding meditation or what the hell that thing was. back when I was about 16. And
Wow.
I mean, even reflecting on it, we did part of it. Like what I know now about meditation, we did it in high school. So even in future thinking,
Yeah.
Robinson made us sit there and in silence and do nothing.
Yeah.
And so there was part of meditation there. And so I was already, I guess, open to that at an early age.
Yeah.
I then just didn't really come back to it probably, I'd say, 16 to, 28?
Yeah.
So 10 years, I kind of
Yeah.
gone away from it without even really thinking
And then
about
that
it.
came in as meditation, like.
And then it came back in as formal meditation, where I was kind of just thinking about, just trying to gain a little bit more clarity and peace of mind and focus on thought, without actually realizing that I'd kind of already opened myself to that book in early years. So, I mean, formally for the past probably 3 years, I've been meditating, and almost religiously for the past 2 years. I'd say I wouldn't not meditate for probably more than 3 days in a week. Like I'd get at least 4 to 5 sessions within a week. I'd say every week for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, of some description.
And you're doing that, are you doing that alongside your journaling, or is that we probably could get into that a little later, but is that like a form of meditation for you, or what's
it can be,
that?
yeah.
But you do that in your morning.
Yes.
You meditate solely, and then you move into your journaling.
Correct.
Which we've talked about in another podcast.
Other podcast. Yeah. So I will always start with the meditation, and I think meditation was the first kind of mindfulness practice that I had. The journaling and reading and things like that have kind of come after, and they've almost been supplementary as alternative forms of mindfulness than just meditation itself. But meditation normally is, I'd typically do it first thing in the morning. It's basically after I make myself a coffee. It's the first thing I do. As soon as I wake up, it's make a coffee and sit down and meditate for at least 10 minutes.
Are you sipping that coffee, or you just...
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you're shotting it back, and then you're just like... Because I feel like...
Zen.
I don't know, like people would, when they think of meditation, they probably wouldn't co-align them with, let me smash back a black coffee and then sit there and because most people I talk to with coffee, if they have too much, they're sitting there getting the jitters, you know, I would say that would be pretty hard to slow the mind down if you're having...
Totally. I mean, if you get jacked up, it can be quite hard to get into that meditation zone, and especially if coffee does that for you. I mean, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think after taking jacked for so many years and drinking coffee more religiously than I meditate, it's I would find that the coffee itself doesn't really wake me jack me up as such. It definitely, I notice it in conversation. I'm more alert in conversation, but it doesn't jack me out like pre-workout will. So by sipping the coffee, it's not necessarily distracting from the meditation itself, but meditation can
because I'll probably put that in there just so that people don't think, oh, maybe I'll have a coffee and try to meditate, see if it miles me out. Like, you'd probably have to self-assess your own reaction to caffeine, and I would say more people than not tend to have the effect of caffeine,
but what you get to, and I think hopefully what will kind of show through either the meditation we do or by the end of the conversation, is that meditation isn't necessarily just this set principled thing, almost like a prayer, where you have to go through a religious or routine kind of set of principles in order to do it properly. Meditation is just looking at what's going on. And so they often use an eating meditation or a drinking meditation, in that in the Chinese culture they have a tea meditation, where literally they have a 3-hour process of just making and drinking tea, herbal tea. And they'll make...
It's out of it, eh?
Yeah, and it's just bringing awareness.
Is that a daily activity? Would it be
for some? Yeah, if you're in the monasteries and things like that, definitely. What else are you gonna do?
That's the thing, eh? A lot of us people go, oh man, I wouldn't have the time for it. It's well, it's because you got so much filler in your life.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, these guys, they appreciate, being out in Mother Nature and just sipping their tea.
That's it.
And looking out
and it's
to the beauty of the world.
Exactly, and in that case, and even in our case where we are so busy, you know, just by drinking, even if you have one cup, you can still be present drinking that one cup. And so most people, you know, again, like you look at a lot of bad eating habits, right? Or even bad drinking habits. So if people are consuming coffee or tea or sugary beverages or alcohol or whatever, like a lot of the time they're actually completely mindless while they're doing it. And so they're just drinking it while doing something else. They don't even know that they're drunk in it. They somehow end up with a full cup, and then they just 2 minutes later the cup's empty. They didn't even know how they got to the end of it.
Bro, it's weird that you say that, because I had a real important business call yesterday, and it went for ages. But at the start of it, I asked Judith to make me some eggs, and she came and dropped the eggs off, and I was in the middle, and it just disappeared.
Yeah, right.
And I was just like, man, I didn't even, because I'm really loving my eggs lately. Yep. And I was like, man, I didn't even get to enjoy my eggs.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, like, because I was on it for a 2-hour call.
Yep.
But anyway, I was like, man, I didn't get to enjoy my eggs, and I was gutted because I've been really enjoying them lately.
Exactly. And that's it. And
you are literally just, it can fall into that mode. You're
just mindless.
It goes into your mouth, and
yeah. And it's like, it's when you start to realize, and so like you said, a lot of them in the formal practice anyway, they'll sit down and they'll do that with everything they do. So whether they're consuming a glass of water, a cup of coffee, eating a meal, or going for a walk, they're doing it with mindfulness.
Yeah.
And they're focusing on just picking up the cup. They're focusing on what they're smelling as they're drinking the coffee. They're focusing on taking the sip. What does that actually taste like? You know, each stage of that process, they're just being aware. And meditation is really just that. It's highlighting awareness, and it's bringing awareness to whatever it is that you're doing. So, you know, the formal practice of sitting down and doing that, I think helps to open the gate. But once the gate's open, you can do it with anything. And the goal is actually to not necessarily just do it in practice. The goal is for it to transfer to the rest of your life. And so that, you know, you can just eat the eggs and enjoy them, or have a conversation with someone and be present rather than thinking about whatever you have to do in the afternoon or whatever. No, I agree. You talked about earlier on how like it was probably around 28 is when you sort of the word meditation or the meditation itself, that realm came into your life. Like what was that first introduction? What was that first little piece, I guess, that that you picked up, or that just tell us about that part. So like early on, I think it was more just understanding that, or realizing that there wasn't a lot of focus, or there was something missing with my focus. You know, like I was either reactionary, and I decided, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like anger, I'd bite or snap at certain things, where later I reflect on, I'm like, what the fuck, like, why did I do that? Or, you know, I'd get home and I would just find myself like pigging out or grabbing a shit ton of food, and I'll be like, oh, like, again, like I know the shit, but why did I do that? Or I'd sit down and I'd struggle to like concentrate on any particular task, and I'd always want to be like jumping between, or like have multiple fucking tabs open and just be jumping between certain things, or needing to do work, and I'd end up like scrolling fucking Instagram instead.
Yeah.
And it was,
I'm sure like all of those things are literally common for a lot of people that are listening now, you know?
Yeah, and it was getting that, and I think it's like, you know, by that age, you're getting to the point where the repercussion of those actions is more prevalent. And so you can actually see the negative side to not paying attention. Whereas I think early on, the negative repercussion just wasn't as severe. It didn't matter as much.
So there wasn't one piece, like one sort of little bit of literature that you picked up, or something that first sort of thing?
No,
there wasn't a person that mentioned to you, hey, you know, like if you're struggling with this, maybe give meditation a look into, or...
Well, so Sam Harris probably would have been the catalyst to it, which he's the guy who actually owns the Waking Up app, has created the Waking Up app.
Yep, cool.
Yeah. So it's his app, and so it wasn't really until I think he did a podcast with Joe Rogan, which was maybe 5 years ago or so.
Oh yeah.
And he was introducing his meditation app as a topic, and he was talking about meditation. I was like, oh yeah, that meditation thing that I did back when I was 16 years old and haven't done it for a while. Why not give that a go?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm struggling with all these bloody areas. And
you hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about how like a lot of high performing entrepreneurs really speak highly of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think if you want a good, convincing scientific understanding of mindfulness and meditation, I'd say Sam Harris is probably one of the most articulate people that I've heard talk about the topic. So I'd say he reintroduced me to it. And again, like I pulled up his app originally and I saw that it was like I don't know, $100 a year or $130 a year or something like that. I was like, fuck that. I ain't paying $130 a year to sit on a cushion.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do anything with it. I looked for, I think it was Headspace then at the time, which is still
free
another
versions,
app.
or is it? Or?
They have a paid one, but they have a little bit more free content that you can use. So I signed up to that and did a little bit there, but eventually you get to a paywall and you have to pay for it or don't do it. And so there was a lot of stop-start because of that early barrier.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point, and I don't know where I heard it, but somewhere from Sam was literally like, if you don't want to pay for this app, you don't have to send us an email. We'll give it to you for free. So there is a paywall subscription behind it, but if you don't want to pay for it, you can just message their customer support and they'll give it to you for free. And so I did.
No way.
Yeah, and literally I
just like a little bit in like a podcast that he was doing or something like that, and and you picked up on
that, and I was like,
surely not.
Yeah, I was like, fuck. and it literally it was, and so I sent the email and I was like, you know, I've been doing this thing on and off, and I feel like I can feel the benefits from doing a little bit of it, but I hit a wall by not being able to do more. Because I don't have the continuous content available. So I was like, fuck it. Like it was almost like one of those click moments where you're like, fuck, I'm just going to do it. And
the power of the ask is very powerful, guys. Like, and it's funny that you heard that though.
Yeah.
But then you still have to take that action though.
And act upon it.
And then do the ask.
Yeah. And literally the whatever customer support team was like, yep, sweet. Here's 6 months for free. So it was like free 6 months.
Sweet. Which is $60.
Yeah.
Versus what you were looking at before.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And now you don't even have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, here's just 6 months for free. And
do you reckon they'll still be doing that?
They still do it. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Anyone can, and that's what I said. So I'll send the link.
You get the 1 month.
Yep, you get the 1 month for free. If you enjoy it and you still like can't afford it or you don't want to pay for it, send customer support a link and they'll literally give you a free 6 months or whatever. You get to the end of that and they'll be like, hey, can you pay for it now? And if you're still like, no, they'll be like, well, you can donate any amount. So it's almost like a koha. Like, give us, is there any amount that you can give? And if you go no, they'll give you another 6 months. Like, there is no paywall if you ask for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
which is cool. That's cool on their behalf.
Such a good business model. Yeah.
Whereas if you're able to pay it forward,
100%.
Jump into the paywall. Or if you're unable to, we still want you here. We still want to help you. Keep meditating and keep spreading the word. I would say would probably be their gain that they get off of that. You know,
100%.
and right now, you know, you're on a podcast now and
talking about it, promoting it because of the value that it's given me.
Yeah.
And again, like I don't think it would be hard if I hadn't had that door slightly opened early on, you know, from doing a little bit of whatever the hell I was doing when I was 16 in kickboxing and sitting in Robo's class being like, this is an easy class to pass.
Yeah.
By just sitting here in silence. Like, if I didn't have that already open, I don't know what the process or that would have looked like if I would have got the same hook that I got when I went back to it 10 years later.
Yeah.
But it just took that. And like I said, like it was the catalyst was shit. Like I'm reactive, I'm distracted. It's having more of a negative impact in my life right now. And the consequences are more in my face. And so now I'm choosing to do something about that. And that was the avenue that kind of allowed me to do it without the barrier, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I didn't even know that you were doing it for that long as well. I definitely knew you were doing it because we talk about it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Probably like 2 years is what I was thinking, maybe a little bit more. Yep. But yeah. And like when you first started, were they was it hard? Was it long spouts as well, or could you like give us a rundown on how your early stages went. So just for the listeners to get a gauge on, I'm guessing I think we've talked a little bit about it and how at the start it's quite hard and you catch yourself and your mind's running off and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we'll be able to see that even probably just in the meditation that we can do. But it's like when you first sit down, I think actually to begin with, you don't realize how much you think. Like, you actually probably think you're doing better than what you are, but
think I'm doing better than what I am, or meditating. You mean? Or?
Yeah, when you first start to meditate, you probably think you're doing better than you are because all you're really catching is the thinking of breathing or whatever it is that you're focusing on. But for a lot of people, sitting down in pure silence is one of the hardest things that they can do because there's this little voice going on constantly in their head, and then you tell someone to close their eyes and you're like, fuck, now I'm confronted with all that shit. Like, if you're battling with anxieties and a lot of like overwhelming emotion, it's probably not the best to close your eyes and sit there in zazen. But like, obviously do this with caution at the same time. It's not all fucking bliss. But it's
probably signs that it's something.
There's some work to be done.
Yeah, there's some work to be done.
100%.
You can't be going and starting and be like, oh no, I can't do this, and then you just go and throw that in the back corner. It's like,
I think that's
even worse.
That's a clear sign that there's some work to be done in that area. But you sit down and quickly you realize just how close to psychotic you are. And you're constantly thinking about random things. And what I like about the Waking Up app anyway is that that's actually normalized. What he says, and once you kind of understand consciousness and how we think, that's the ebbs and flows of what everyone is typically going through. And we all think, and we, I don't even know what the fuck how I'm coming up with these sentences at the moment, we don't know the next thing we're going to say. And that's the same thing when we're sitting there in silence. We're like, we don't know what's actually just going to pop up out of the blue.
Yeah.
But what you realize when you're focusing on the breath is that like these random questions and thoughts and things just pop up.
Yeah.
And all meditation is a training to be able to witness that. And it's hard to begin with. You quickly realize you're like, I'm one step away from bloody psychotic behavior. A
lot of people are, right? Like it's a combination of decisions that you're making, right? And then things pop up in your head, and then you have to sort of self-mitigate that and be like, well, that's a stupid thought. On to the next thought, and then they all just cycle through, right?
And they just cycle through. And even the thinking, oh, this is a stupid thought, is but another thought.
Yeah.
And so like you're just continuously caught in this state of thinking. And that's what you realize when you sit there in silence. You just realize that, hey, there's this whole conversation that's going on almost consistently throughout the day within your own head that you're like, I don't even know what the hell's going on. And just being able to sit there and focus on one thing, whether that's the breath or the sounds that you're hearing or something that you're looking at, just focusing on one thing, how hard that actually is.
I've tried. I've struggled. Even though we're going to do a meditation today, it's just, I know it's worth a shot for me, and I definitely don't ever have, I don't think I suffer from the crippling anxiety. I'm not in that realm or that world, or I don't have the worrying, because I have been through some tough times in business and relationships, and I've dealt with them quite well. It's just mine is just the quieting of the mind. I think is for me, that's what I would be interested in. Just sort of, you were talking about it before, like all of those thoughts come out when you try to sit there and sit still. Like I definitely have a problem. They're not bad thoughts or anything like that, but it's just, man, and it's just like boom, just like non-stop, next thought to the next thought to the next thought. And then I would catch myself thinking about that, and I'll be like, how the hell did I end up on this topic when I started off on a Batman movie or something like that? And then I'm over here, and then what I'd do is I'd reverse engineer my thoughts, and how do I get it? Oh, that's how I got here. And then I'll just start another random chain of thoughts again.
And that's it. And again, like, that's actually why it's called waking up. And there is like a maybe a Pali term or an ancient kind of Indian term, Sri Lankan term potentially, a word that is related to waking up. And that's the insight. Like that's the goal that you're getting to. You want that kind of wake up moment. You know, when you wake up from having a dream, you're like, oh, fuck. That same thing occurs when you're lost in thought. You're almost caught in this dreamlike state where you don't even know how you are or what you're doing or how you got there. But there's a moment where you come to reality and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You literally wake up from that dream. And that's why it's called waking up, because essentially like what you're training is the ability to wake up earlier and notice when you're starting to go in that direction again, because people think that you're trying to like almost, arm wrestle your way to being able to focus on just one thing at a time. And it's like, nah, what you're doing is realizing the natural state of the human mind to not be able to focus on one thing at a time and be able to catch it as you're going away from that one thing. And so the quicker you can catch yourself going away from the thing that it is that you're trying to focus on, the quicker you can come back and start again. And then as you start again, you're just spending more and more time on that thing. And so it's not that you'll never have another thought or that you'll only be able to create this, enlightened state of just focusing on whatever it is that you want to focus on. It's understanding that when you're focusing on that type of thing or whatever it is that you're doing, you likely will be caught up. And that's even heightened in emotional states. Yeah. So if you're angry, 9 times out of 10, it's because you're lost in thought. You can't manifest anger without thinking about it. And so the only way you can continuously be angry is if you or anxious, is if you think about how anxious you are or how angry you are.
Yeah.
All of that is thinking. And so just being able to note the time that you can be like, wake up and be like, fuck, I've been, thinking about how anxious I'm being, which is just making me anxious, or I'm thinking about wanting to go to sleep and that's preventing me from being able to go to sleep. Like, you can wake up from that just thought process that you otherwise are just forever caught in, almost like a dream.
Yeah, I'd get that all the time with like rallying myself up with political opinions.
Yep.
And just things that are going on in the media right now, the assassination attempts and stuff. And then I'd find myself subscribing to some of these clips that are designed to make me think about it more, and then it'll make me aggravate me, and then the next thing will get me more, and then I'll be going, and then I'd literally just go, hold on a second, take a step back, realize that essentially, is this involving me at all in my life right now? Like, and what I have to, does it still affect the things that I have to get done by the end of today? No. Well, then I go and try and get that out of my mind, and then go and get the task that I need to get done today,
Yeah. I mean, all we're trying to do is cultivate awareness. It's like we're wanting to be more aware of our thoughts. We're wanting to be more aware of our actions. Mindfulness, interchange those terms however you want. We just want to be more thoughtful and mindful about the things that we're doing. Yeah. And meditation is just a way that we can practice that. It's like going to the gym, like when you go to the gym and hit a strength session, you're training to be stronger. Yeah. You don't just turn up on the bench press and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, like I've got this 1 rep max, and you go hit a 140 or something. Very few people can do that. So what do? You train it. And you go in there and you do the reps. And by doing that, well, then you can go and do the feat. Same with mindfulness and meditation. The thing we want is to be able to catch ourselves when we are lost in thought, when we're angry, when we don't need to be, and otherwise thinking negatively. Yeah. We want to be more mindful. We want to have awareness. We want to know when we're stressed out and chucking a donut down our throats or drinking alcohol, whatever it is. Like we want to know that that's what we're doing, and meditation is almost the rep that's required in order to be able to see that. Yeah.
Well, I look at it sort of as another thing I need to probably get under my repertoire as I've been strengthening my mind. I have the resilience for, I guess, fitness accolades or business accolades, but I don't have it in the ability to not be reactive. I definitely am a lot better now, and because we talk about it quite a lot, I guess this might be just like that next step for me. Like I've been going through that early stages, realizing when I'm having my angry moments, when I'm being reactive, and learning. Like I've definitely pulled back, and when it's trying to inflame me, and then I just don't react, and it always fizzles out, right? Like it's really the interaction's always based on how I react, and if you can control your reactions, then most of the time it will always dissipate to nothing. Sometimes they're just looking for a fight, and you just and you can still control as much of your reactions as you can as well, but I do struggle. Once, like, I'm being really good at holding the wall. It's sort of like holding the door closed when the water's trying to flood in a movie, you know, and like just holding, and then and it flies through. It all goes all the way through.
And it's like I think just meditation probably puts another person at the door. You know, like in that analogy, you've just got a partner in crime trying to hold that door open. And like, sure, at some point it might just fling open, but close. Sorry, you've got someone else there to kind of just put the hands, or you've got like Goku going Super Saiyan. You know, it's like you're just powering up a little bit and put a little bit more force there. It's like the iceberg thing. You know, like you once you kind of get to that tipping point, or volcano, you get to the tipping point. It's like there's very little, like, even to be fair, there's very little you can do at that point to kind of bring yourself back. Now, meditation can help you because you can use that as almost another catching place and be like, oh, fuck, I notice myself getting hot in the face, or I'm yelling, like, and that can be the sign to, oh, fuck, I've lost it again. Okay, bring it back down. And you can use that. Meditation teaches you to use that. But at the same time, it allows a slower build up in the first place. And so as it's building up, if your tipping point's here, well, it still might build up, but it's only building up to, like, you know, 3/4 of the way there rather than to the point of spillover. And again, it's just training the act of catching. And all you're doing is just catching whatever it is that you're doing in that sense to bring awareness to where you are. And it's like, why am I angry right now?
It's not always for anger too, right? Like
No.
it's funny how you mentioned like some of the meditation that you had in your younger years. I had a real estate agent that I used to work with, and I was always in the office quite late. I was always tended to be doing some deals quite late, like and taking clients out, so I would always go into the office to do up contracts, and he'll be there just meditating, you know, like, and then I always be in the office early sometimes as well, and same thing, he'll be in there meditating. Like it was quite a funny thing, and like he would always stop and like say, you know, like I would have a chat, and I was like, like it seems to always be me and you in here early and me and you in here late. But it's he would always be meditating, but he was never ever. Well, maybe because he meditated all the time, he was never ever angry or anything like that. But I think he always used it for just remaining positive always, and he always had good things to say. And like I think that's probably what I saw him, and like I was like, oh man, meditation. Like, you know, I didn't think any more past that. And, you know, I was in my hustle and bustle years, but I did see that, and I did notice like those characteristics about him. You know, it's not always about just not being so angry, but it's also just, you know, having a positive outlook on life. And I only see those as positive things, you know, going towards meditation, you know.
Yeah, well, like, so, and it is a good point, because either way you look, like, a lot of the times we will focus on the negative elements, and we use this, or we do this kind of, you know, mind training or mental training to kind of help us in the problematic states. But at the same time, we also want to use it in the positive states. Like, you want to be able to acknowledge when you're happy. You want to be able to experience, you know, the love of another partner. You want to be able to experience the joy that those things bring you. And apart from fucking dropping ecstasy, like, you want to be able to experience that in real time. You know, and it's like, and the thing with it is when you're actually aware and when you're in the present of that, or the present moment of that, you can experience it. But again, like, so often we kind of catch ourselves that we don't actually, you know, we get to the top of the mountain and we kind of like, okay, now we got to go down. Like, you don't actually even take in the breath and be like, oh, fuck, like, we actually just climbed the bloody mountain in the first place. You know, it's like, we're so quick, and it's the same with goals, right? Like, we're so quick to look
Definitely
for that
guilty
next
of that
goal.
one.
We don't even sit there and actually like appreciate what's actually just gone on and where we are. And meditation helps with that too, because it's just bringing awareness, whether that awareness is in a negative state or a positive state. And Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, why fucking Molly is so good? It's like because it brings people into that, I'm in that kind of heightened awareness of everything's just loving.
Yeah. I have appreciation for that, and I have appreciation for that.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
know, it's just, I guess what you say is more living in the now, right?
It's living in the now. And it, like, again, meditation is just the training in which that enables you to do that. It's, you're not just going to miraculously turn up it and be happy, but when you can cultivate that mindfulness towards it, you can actually be more there. And so you can appreciate that. And just as you can change a thought of a bad thought, you can change the thought of a good thought too. And it's just being more present. And like I said, it's the training of cultivating awareness and just mindfulness in general.
Yeah. Do you have any other like things that you want to run over, like the main benefits? I think we ran over quite a lot of them, but like, is there anything that you wanted to, you got written down or anything like that before we go into?
Yeah, I mean, why don't we go into the meditation itself, and then I don't know, there might be a little bit of that might either get some clicks, based on some some waking up moments.
Yep.
Based on even what we've talked about, or we can just see like how that even feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet.
Oh, so, I mean, people can kind of follow along if they want to.
Yeah.
But essentially, just I'll start a timer. It should only take probably around about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Right? Like it won't be too long.
Yeah. For the listeners, so they're like, all right, we're here. Skip.
Or if you just want to see his
we're
reaction.
We're not doing a full-on in-depth one,
That's it. We just start with 5 minutes. Nice,
you might
easy.
catch me crying in 3 minutes.
As long as you're fully aware. Okay, so like I said, we'll just do 5 minutes and then we can kind of reflect on it and see.
Okay.
Even it might be completely different to what you've always experienced. Right? So we'll just start, just sit basically as comfortably as you can. Okay?
Okay.
And then once you're comfortable, just close your eyes and become aware of just sitting. So you might feel, the pressure of your back against the chair or gravity pulling you down. If there's any tension up in your shoulders, just relax and take a few deep breaths. Now become aware of the sensations of breathing. Now there's nothing significant about the breath, but it is always something that you've got. And so there's always something you can pull on if you do need to be mindful. But notice where you feel the breath. Either at the tip of your nose or at the rising and the falling of your chest. Wherever you feel it, just focus there. And as you pay attention to the breath, you'll begin to notice other sensations, tingling, maybe sounds, thoughts. And if you do, just notice them and come back to the breath. See if you can become sensitive to what's happening in your mind when you hear my voice. I'll be interrupting your chain of thought, catching you thinking while you're actually trying to pay attention to the breath. Just notice that and come back to the breath. And in the last minute, just try count the next 10 breaths. Count 1 on the inhale, and 1 again on the exhale. Then 2. See if you can get to 10. And as you open your eyes, just take stock of how you're feeling. Whether the experience was pleasant or not, it's not really the point. What you're learning, like I said, is that skill. And that skill is just becoming less distracted, less identified with the thought. And to make progress, all you have to do is begin again. Like I was saying, just go back to the breath. How did you feel when you were counting to 10? If we come out of that Zen-like state.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I enjoyed that.
How did you, what did you experience when you were kind of counting towards 10?
Counting to 10, I got to 7.
Yeah.
And it was hard. So going 7, because I was going 7 in and then 7 out.
Oh, yep.
8 in,
8 out.
8 out. And
Yep.
when I got to, I think there was like more of a sticking point around 5 and 6. Then 7, I had to think about counting for 7 and 7. Then then 8 was hard, but the second 8 was fine, and then 9 and 9 was fine, and then 10 and 10 was fine. Yeah.
For me, when I do that, I almost feel like I'm, like what you're saying, I'm almost like arm wrestling my way there. Like I can focus sometimes, like half the time I do get lost, and I know the first few times that I did that in particular. So that was kind of adapted from a few of the meditations that are on the Waking Up app. A few of the first times when I was doing that, like I was gone by about 3.
Yeah.
I think
I thought of you. I was like, is he counting my breaths? And then I think that was around 7 that's why pretty much I was thinking about just literally the breath. I didn't have too much thoughts off of the breath, to be honest. And I caught my when you mentioned like feel tension in your shoulders, like, so straight away and then I went boom to that, and then like I was like this.
I could see it.
Yeah, and then I went like that, and then it came back like 2 or 3 times while you were getting me to do the breathing and just thinking of the breathing. And then I caught myself again. I was just like, how the hell did that right shoulder get back up there?
Yep.
I didn't even know how I went from, because I thought I was relaxed, and then all of a sudden I was like, this was tensed again, and then I just relax again.
Yep.
So there was a couple times where I sort of went off for the breathing, but I didn't actually. I would say obviously the point of doing this is like at night time, it would make it way easier, as like, because that's when I've always sort of called myself like a night owl, because like my mind that's when my mind just sort of goes into overdrive. The later it gets for me, I don't know why, but yeah.
It's for me it was definitely like an arm wrestle, and like even now I can definitely get to the place where I'll arm wrestle my way to 10.
Yeah.
Like I can focus on it through till 10, but it's an arm wrestle to get there. Like you said, you'll get to around 5 or 7 or so, and you'll be like, "Ooh, I know I'm noticing at least the inclination to want to go away."
I found it helpful having you do that for me versus if I was trying to tell myself
that
I would really. So do you, when you're doing your meditation, you got some headphones on and you're using the app?
Typically I'm listening to some kind of guided meditation, which definitely makes.
I listened to the How to Be Like a Monk. What was it by Jay
Shetty?
Jay Shetty, is it?
Yep. Yeah, how to be like a monk or something.
How to be like
that.
a monk or something. Yeah, I might have botched it, but
I think it is.
Yeah, and I was doing it while I was going for a run, and then he was going through that meditation. I was like, oh, I've got zero chance of doing this while going for a long run. But it was interesting having that, and I was just like, oh, it was nice, and then like just having so I sort of thought my inclination of meditation was like more like you sit there yourself and you don't have anyone. But like the guided side of it, I probably could actually do that. I quite liked it. It was good sort of having the ability of someone to tell me, and then I can just sort of follow those instructions. And then I think there was a few points in them where he was like, think about different points on your body, and he was talking about that, and it was good.
Yeah. And I mean, you get to a place where I think like there's a it's what they call in Buddhism anyway, is dual versus non-dual awareness, which dual awareness is kind of like where that's subject-object. So I'm here, I'm focusing on this pen, like me, the pen. Mm-hmm. Or I'm here, I'm focusing on the breath or the thought or whatever it is. And like again, like you use the breath, and the breath is just because it's there. Like it can be anything. So a good one for me is actually sounds.
Yeah.
And so, like we talked about last week, there's always a sound. And so just the awareness of hearing a sound is enough to be like, I can just use that. So every time I can come back to what are the sounds I'm hearing.
And that's why I moved the mic, because I heard my breath.
Can hear it,
Yeah, I could hear it. And it was very apparent to me because I got my headphones on.
Yep. And there can be a place, so when you get to it, you can actually just use that. So that could be another source of mindfulness. Like you could sit there and...
I've already been told I don't listen to Judith enough, but from her, I'm just sitting there like, just listening to my own breath instead of her.
and you can hear those things, or sights. So like another one is actually, if you close your eyes, you don't see nothing. Like there's actually something there, and even if they're just like a lot of little speckle lights, it's like looking into the fucking sky. Like you're actually seeing just these random colours of light.
You can never catch the colour.
No. And so it's not nothing. So even when you close your eyes, there's not nothing there. And so you can be completely aware, even with your eyes closed, of what's in your visual field. And so again, like you can use absolutely anything. But kind of where you end up getting to is that the guide, the voice itself, so even me talking through the meditation can be just another sign of awareness. And so all you can be there is just like sitting there listening to anything, and even the guide or whoever's talking can actually just be something in your own consciousness, with consciousness being whatever it is, that the accumulation of senses that make you. And so you can use that. So yeah, and like I said, like a lot of times it can be easy to focus on the breath to begin with, but the more you do it, the more other senses you actually come up with will be able to feel. So like I said, tension or hearing or seeing. And then the goal is to then be able to transition that into everyday life. And so then as you're noticing those things, whether they are thoughts, whether that is, you're hearing something or seeing something, a lot of it for me, so like a good one is me reaching for the cupboard door. So if I'm reaching for the pantry, like if I'm reaching for the pantry, that's in my visual field. I'm just paying attention to that, because if I can pay attention to that, well, then the next step doesn't come, which is whatever the hand goes in to grab something. And it's normally when I don't see that, I'm just reactionary. And again, so you can start using anything, but
that's a good one. Like, and that would be for reaching for the phone.
100%.
I've caught myself a few times when I was just watching a video, but I was like, I'm already watching something. Why do I need to? Like, it didn't ring, it didn't do anything. It wasn't, but there was this phantom want to just pick it up and see and confirm that there was nothing on that screen.
There was nothing there, yeah. Yeah. And it is like at that point, what you're training is just the ability to see that, because there's no difference between you doing like that and a thought popping into your head. It's the same reaction. Like it comes almost out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You don't realize it.
The autonomy of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so just by noticing that, just as you would notice a thought pop into your head, and again, it's not to say that the goal is to not have those thoughts. The goal actually is to identify those thoughts more. And that's what it's almost, you get this kind of false sense of progression when you first start, because when you first start and you're like, oh, I'm not noticing anything. But it's like, no, that's good. You probably are focusing on one thing even more, but by focusing on one thing even more, you're also not focusing on all the things that you're otherwise trying to focus on. And so I
found that I was like, okay, this is probably because I'm quite relaxed right now anyway. I would say it's just a repetitive thing, right? You gotta it's something you gotta practice, and then you can use it in at times where you're like, okay, these are the times where I need to be implementing those things. I'm definitely. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this podcast, is because I'm going to give it a crack, and I'm going to at least sort of add it to one of my daily tasks as something that I think I need to elevate myself to the next level. I think it's got to be in there, or some form of it at least. Maybe not full on dedicated to it at the 20 minutes a day or anything like that. Maybe just a small little stints. Like I went and sat out on the deck today, just having small moments whenever I can.
Momentary awareness. And a lot of the time that's really the goal. Most of us don't want to live in some kind of monastery where we're doing this for 12 hours a day. We've got things that we need to attend to in real life, and we actually want to attend to those things. And how can we do that in a more present or aware state so we can kind of make the most out of that? And I think the quality of our thought, the quality of our life, the quality of the relationships that we have are almost predicated on our ability to focus on those things. And I think it was Plato that attributed to Socrates something around like, the true meaning to life is living and examine life. And the more that we can actually examine and be in the life that we're in, I think we just have a life more worth living.
Yeah, I saw a little post, and it was saying most man dies at 25 and is buried at 73, something like that. It's because their soul they just go into existing and just not paying attention to anything around them, and they're just caught in that perpetual spin. And
you think about the time that I said I kind of stumbled into meditation, 28, like that, it's within the ballpark of 25 to 60. It's like that's where they start to manifest, because actually the repercussions of your actions start to matter more. They don't matter as much when you're younger. You can get away with a few things there, but now they're starting to matter more. And by being aware of them and examining how it is that you're thinking and what your actions actually, what you're taking to the table is huge. I think it's a responsibility we should own 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon we can leave it there. That was awesome. Cheers for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.